Okay, so welcome everyone and to our meeting, and we'll call the meeting to order. First item of business is to go over the meeting minutes, and we seek approval of the minutes. So that was emailed yesterday. Both sets. So both sets of meeting minutes were emailed to you, and I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. So it's been moved and seconded, the approval of the minutes. Any changes or any discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes approved. Next, we will have an update on transdermal patch.
Thank you, Dr. Weeby. This will be a very quick update. As most of you are aware, with everything going on in today's world, shipping delays and getting certain materials has become quite a bit more difficult in certain areas, and it's no different for us here in relation to this area. So the manufacturing facility did run into a few issues in regards to getting things that were needed in a timely manner. So right now we are on track for those patches to get to market next month. Okay, I said it'd be quick. That's the quickest I could possibly be.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason? Okay. So we'll move to medical marijuana product 30-day purchasing amount and possession limit.
This one will probably not be as quick.
Okay, take your time.
So in our last meeting, a request was made to provide information from other states regarding limits, just so the board could get an idea of kind of where North Dakota was at in comparison to other states. Our discussion at that time had started in relation to the 4,000 milligrams of THC in those medical marijuana products. And really the discussion had started that we had been hearing from some patients and also from certain dispensaries that 4,000 limit was a concern for certain patients in the program, and that should be looking at a potential increase in the limit. So to touch on what we're going to discuss, we have up here this types of usable marijuana graphic that you've seen before, and I just want to make sure that when we talk about limits that there aren't any questions about what we're talking about with the 4,000 milligrams of THC as compared to the 2.5 ounces of flower. And it's going to get a little more confusing when we start looking at other states, because not all states are the same. States use some different terminology. States combine and give one amount and use conversions of the non-flower products, and we'll briefly touch on that as well. But when we talk that 4,000 milligrams of THC total, we're really talking medical marijuana products. And under the law, when we say a medical marijuana product, it's those 5 items underneath there. So you're looking at your concentrates, your solutions, your capsules, tinctures, and soon to be patches to market. Keep in mind that with the limits, the 2.5 ounces of dried leaves and flowers and that 4,000 milligrams of THC, those are tracked as 2 individual limits over a 30-day rolling period. So that being said, when we look at purchase limits, the first spot and compared to other states, first thing we want to do is just take a look at our surrounding states for comparison purposes. So when we look at our 3 surrounding states, we'll start here with Minnesota. And Minnesota doesn't offer us a whole lot of help, mainly because Minnesota, in their requirement, it's a 30-day supply, not a specific amount, and that's determined by the pharmacist at the dispensary in the state. Up until March of this year, Minnesota didn't even have flower in their program. So that is a new item. So you may see a change on their limit amount since flower was recently introduced. In Montana, an individual can purchase 5 ounces every 30 days. And what the way Montana considers that 5 ounce amount is using an amount equivalent to an ounce of flour for determining how those non-flour products are going to come off an individual's limit. You'll see here on this chart that with this, what they identify is an equivalent amount to 1 ounce of flour. So they're always able to convert and take off that 5 ounce limit, whether it's a flour purchase or a non-flour purchase item. And you can see that a concentrate, 8 grams of concentrate in their program is equivalent to 1 ounce of flour. Now that 8 grams of concentrate equivalent to 1 ounce of flour, we're going to use kind of in a little bit here. But where that comes from, and this is something that you're going to see in a lot of other states' information, the 1 ounce of flour equated to 8 grams of concentrate. That comes from a study from Colorado back in 2015. You'll see South Dakota, and that's one of the newest states to start dispensing under a medical marijuana program. They are allowing 3 ounces every 14 days. So if you look at 30 days, or really a 4-week period here, they're sitting at a total of 6 ounces. And they have a conversion table that they use. You'll see the 8 grams in there, 800 milligrams of milligrams of THC and some of their other products. You'll also, it's common based on that study from Colorado. Next, we'll jump down to selected 7 states. For various reasons, using the 7 to get you to 10, there's over 30 states now with medical programs, but tried to just give an idea in relation to some states that are somewhat similar to North Dakota, and also to give an idea of where their limits are. Won't cover everything here on the slide, or I shouldn't say slide, but that's on the screen for these other states, but you can see most states are above what we are in relation to limits. So when I mentioned last meeting that we're probably on the low end, the surrounding states, if you look at Montana and South Dakota, we're lower. On this chart, we are certainly the lowest as well. So how does North Dakota in relation to looking at this other state's information when we say 2.5 ounces of flour and then 4,000 milligrams of THC? What I did is looked at one dispensary last Friday and said, what's their average milligrams of THC in their concentrate products that they have in their facility? And using that then to kind of use the conversion for the 1 ounce of flour to 8 grams of concentrate to try to give you an idea that if we were a state like these here where they just use a conversion, so your South Dakotas, Montanas, your Missouri, Rhode Island, Hawaii, these ones, the conversion used, where do we sit? Down, if you want to scroll down for me, please, we'll get into the analysis part of what we're looking at. Really, concentrate, this is just an average at a given time. 1 gram of concentrate had 758 milligrams of THC in it, which is going to approximate to 5 grams of concentrate. So if you add that together, in North Dakota's program, you're looking at 3.1 ounces over a 30-day period. That has us down on the very low end of where things are at. If you looked at increasing that 4,000 milligrams of THC to 6,000, you're looking at approximately 3.5 ounces then in a 30-day period. That still has North Dakota on the low end of purchase limit amounts. Even if that 4,000 were to double to 8,000, it's still on the lower end compared to other states because you're still going to be under 4 ounces in that conversion rate if you use that exact conversion rate from the other states. So,
can I ask a question? So we have the 2.5 plus the 4,000.
yeah,
And they just have one total, right?
correct.
So if someone were to theoretically buy both, would then we be more equivalent and not so low?
No.
Or is that bottom actually
Equates out to how the other
what would
states
be
are.
if you bought your max up to 30
So
days?
if you took your 4,000 milligrams of THC and
Yeah.
just using concentrates here,
Okay,
because
yeah.
that's going to be the easiest because
Yeah,
it's sold
just the
in a
max,
half
okay.
gram or a gram.
Yeah.
So that 758 milligrams, you're going to get approximately 5 grams of concentrate. Well, 5 grams of concentrate in that conversion, so it'd be 5/8 to 1 ounce of flour is gonna add 0.6 ounces roughly, rounding off
Okay.
here. So if we were to say, what is North Dakota's one number, like South Dakota and Montana has, we're at about 3.1 ounces in 30 days.
They're on sheets.
Much lower.
They're, Donna, can you scroll back up? Montana's sitting at.
The numbers are swimming in my head now, so.
That first page, thank you. So Montana's sitting at 5 ounces every 30 days, and South Dakota is basically 6 ounces every 4 weeks. So our conversion, if we were to look at that, we are on that lower end. Now, some of the history behind that, from what I've been told, when this was first brought to the legislature, there was a lot of concern about diversion with the other, these types of medical marijuana products, your vape cartridges, your shatter, your waxes, you know, those things were more of a risk for diversion. The legislature was some of the discussion. I can't tell you that, I wasn't in on those, that's just kind of what I have been hearing. And so that 4,000 milligrams then kept that at a level that, you know, shouldn't create a diversion problem potentially. And that's the other thing to consider when looking, you know, if you were to increase that amount, any increased risk to diversion, there's always that risk involved whenever anything increases, whether it's the flour amount or the milligrams of THC amount. So we are really at that low end of the spectrum when it comes to medical programs, so.
That all predated me as well. That was all in place by the time.
So you're saying we can blame Representative Westland?
Absolutely.
Um,
Always blame the person who cannot defend themselves.
Correct. So I bring this information, I know it's quite a bit, and there's a lot of numbers here in regards to this, but I kept it at 10 states because after a while, the numbers just become very clouded, and some states use units, how many purchasing units you have, and I try to stay away from those, some that have some really different or large amounts. You can see Colorado, I think it was January of this year, made the change. They used to have where you could get 40 grams of concentrate, and they moved that to 8. Realizing that, you know, that's quite a bit in regards to this. So
That's daily there though?
that's a daily amount where you can go in and just buy that full amount in the day.
And then do they track it to where they can't go back the next day and buy that again?
I tried to find that out in Colorado, and I got different information and haven't heard back from them.
Okay.
So, But-
This is all solely just medical programs that you're looking at, correct?
these are medical amounts. Some of these states are gonna have recreational, some of them are gonna have home grow too.
Okay.
If you look at Missouri, Missouri, is a really, a recent state too, one that was implemented before South Dakota, but they're 4 ounces a month. That's their conversion rate. That's what they have on a card. I think it's even on the back of their card, if I remember correctly, but it's the same thing. It's the, you know, 8 grams of concentrate, 800 milligrams of THC. So they've stayed somewhat consistent to the 2015 study that was done. There's some debate starting about that there may be a new study that needs to be done because of the fact that in 7 years, the concentrate amounts that were used in that report really are a lot different than what's on the market today. Just because extraction has gotten a lot better. The percentage of THC milligrams per gram in those concentrates is a lot larger. Flour's gone up some, but I don't think at the rate that the concentrates have. So we've been wondering if somebody was going to redo the study to check on conversion rates, but I'm not aware of that being done. 2015 is the most recent.
So from an administrative perspective, if the legislature were to pass something that really outlined it and didn't have them bifurcated anymore, it was just total product and they had the equivalents in there. From an administrative perspective, is that a very large deal? It'll be work, but it's doable, or it's not a big deal. It would just be a programming change or something, you know?
D, all of the above.
Awesome.
It kind of depends on, what aspect of the program you want to look at. I think Casey, I'll let Casey go first.
No, I apologize to interject, but the mathematics on this, we could almost create a cheat sheet for a lot of people and you'd still struggle unless you do it for a living. From dealing both from the manufacturing side and somewhat from the dispensary side. The math alone on the 4 grams or 4,000 milligrams and then converting that into a 758 milligram product and helping folks, somewhat max out their allotments so they can get the medicine they need is difficult already. If you were to convert this after this program's been in existence, it's going to be a difficult learning curve for everyone, I think. And I'm sorry, Jason, I haven't spoke with anyone else about it. I just mean, I can't imagine. You go all the way from labeling to everything else, it would be difficult.
I just worry that the way that we have it right now is encouraging people to use the dried leaves and flowers either by smoking it or creating their own products.
I understand that, yeah.
And so if we had this global number and people could purchase products that have been, manufactured to be consistent and whatever, instead of now I baked brownies or I did whatever with it to make my own, would we?
I would say to try and to try and get like a consistent product to be 758 milligrams all the time is gonna be pretty unachievable. Correct?
Right, this is just an example, but I'm saying if it's 60% or 80%, there's a larger issue for you in that, in converting that for patients. Unfortunately, I think if you go to a conversion method, I think you're actually, there's a certain amount of people that are going to attempt to manufacture on their own no matter what. I actually believe you're encouraging, just from my end of it. I really would believe that. And
I'll do my best in regards to that. If the legislature makes the determination they would like to move to a direction like these other states have, we'll figure out a way to make it work. It would require a number of significant changes in the program, from the BioTrack THC system to the labeling requirements, to allotment process. That would all kind of need to be looked at and probably redone. The other part of it, in regards to possession limits, which is separate than, what you can purchase. I think law enforcement, we're having some struggles already, and the other part to this agenda item is possession amount. But if you were to say, for example, what they can possess is 4 ounces, max at any one time is 4 ounces. Now law enforcement's going to have to try to do those conversions in the field, where here it would be, if there were to be a possession limit eventually on the milligrams of THC, it's what's the total amount on that label in the box. They have 4 boxes. It's 300 plus 1,200 plus 1,200 plus 500. They're under that amount, off you go. So I'm not going to speak for law enforcement, but I can certainly see where that one's going to become a little bit trickier, a little bit harder to do conversion for that. Dispensaries know, we've been in dispensaries enough to know, and it gets confusing for patients. This, I think the way the legislature set it up originally makes it a little clearer, and it might be just because maybe we've worked in it so long that it's clear to us. It's like mud. To some, it's very clear. To some, it's not so clear. But that is obviously a legislative decision.
So would we think that maybe just enhancing the milligrams and not worrying about the overall is where we would rather go with that? Just maybe upping it like you're doing to the 6,000 or 8,000. I think, 8,000 would be, if we did 8,000, that would put us at about 4.1 ounces for the month. Is that correct?
Right around 3.8.
3.8. Okay.
So we would probably just say, that's just using concentrates only.
So that would be
To try to
doubling
make
their
that-
allotment, not messing with the flour at all, but doubling their concentrate allotment and getting us to around 4 ounces a month total, which would be still on the lower end of what everyone else is at, but double what they're getting at the moment.
That would be correct.
handicapping whether there is any appetite in the legislature right now for any changes, because I don't know what it looks like today.
Well, I must admit that as part of this discussion, I know Representative Westland had originally planned to be here. For those in the room, Representative Westland did resign his position from the advisory board meeting this morning, as he did not win in the primary yesterday. So we'll have a legislative management will have to appoint a new individual to the board. But that was going to be part of the discussion to see on the House side of things and the Senate side of things, kind of how you would like to proceed. This is an advisory board, so the board certainly can advise the department in regards to where they would like the department to try to go. It also can make recommendations to legislative management as well. I can't speak for Dr. Wiebe. He's sitting here though to my right, but certainly the department would take what the advisory board has for, any advisement or movement in relation to milligrams of THC, or kind of where the board believes the best way for the department to go.
I think one way or another, it needs to be looked at and enhanced one way or the other. Just from the patient standpoint, me seeing them on a daily basis, there's lots of people that run out of that stuff. And, a lot of those people have their full flower allotment still sitting there, and they're just not going to use it because that's not the way they're consuming. They're not the way they can consume or use the products. And, some people, you're driving people to do other things they probably don't want to be doing then as well. You know what I mean? So one way or the other, I think it needs to be addressed somehow or another, at least talked about. I don't know which way we go. I think maybe just by listening to what these guys are saying for the program, maybe it would be best just to enhance the milligram allotment, as opposed to doing like a conversion rate, in my opinion. Just so the program can stay where we're at, we can keep all the same computer programming and whatnot. We wouldn't have to change all that stuff up, because I'm sure that would put a hiccup in product and all that stuff as well, and dispensing product. I would assume at some point in time we'd have to have a period where we're getting into this new program, right? And I don't know how we would get patients their product at that time while we're switching over. That would be my concern with
Yeah,
that.
no, I would agree with you 100%. I think the education part of it would certainly be a stumbling block for a while at least. And that, would certainly do it. Whatever we need to do, we'll do. I think, I know you're thinking wrong. Yeah, I think 6,000 milligrams. I've kind of done some math on this since the last time we were in here, and just kind of looked at our dispensaries when people run out of products, and then looking at it from the manufacturing side for the demand. Maybe Jake, you may not think that's enough. I just think that's kind of a nice happy medium to go to, and I think maybe a little bit easier to appease people.
I feel like you're probably right that it might appease the Congress more to not totally.
And
patients without going too liberally in that.
I would say
Hopefully
off the
that's-
record, but in a public meeting, you might want to start with 8,000 so that it gets compromised to 6.
Appreciate that. I'm not very good with politics. I'm used to my wife every
If you
day.
start with 6, it might end up at 5 or not change it all.
Appreciate that, yeah. Negotiations are my strong point. Thank you.
So is there kind of any data or kind of like guidance to kind of like, what proportion of patients are running out of their allotment, and what really, is 6 the magic number, or is it 8, or?
I don't have numbers on how many are actually running out. I come across it a couple times a month. You know what I mean? Some of these patients also can't use the flower because they're in apartments or something like that. You know what I mean? Where they're, trying to be as discreet as possible. And that falls underneath those concentrates as well. So, I don't have an exact number, no, but I definitely run across it on a monthly basis, at least a couple times, 5, 6 times, where people are like, oh, I can't get anything right now. And I'm like, well, you're you're out right at the moment. You know, I look up the date when they might be getting something back, so I can tell them the date and time that they can come back and grab something. And I don't know if they don't have anything at home at that point, you know what I mean? But if they don't, they're, you know, for their way of use is, you know, compromised at that time, so. Yeah, I don't have an exact number. I do know, you know, talking about like the enhanced allotment again, for like the terminally ill cancer patients and whatnot. You know, people that are in hospice, stuff like that, aren't gonna be able to, you know, all that extra flour that they're given in their enhanced allotment really does a lot of those people absolutely no good. Because, you know, some of those people are gonna be in hospice, in the hospital where they can't be using that flour anyways, so that's where the concentrates come in for them, big time. You know, that's something that can be just
And I
discreetly
think
used.
that's what
That's gonna
appealed
be
to
like-
me about having just one number.
Sure,
And then you as a patient get to pick
sure.
how you choose to fill that number. But I get that there's some conversion process to that, but that's what appeals to me of just saying.
You
can
get
have
this
the
number,
equivalent
use
of
what you want.
X, you choose how you want that
Right,
X,
right.
instead of, you can have a little bit of this and a little bit of that,
Mhm.
and
And I mean, I like that idea as well. I just think that with
how
the
we
way the
get
program
there
is
is
set up
the,
is,
yeah, how
it's
we
gonna
get
be
there
tough
is
to
the
do
challenge.
that, yeah.
I think actually if you get high numbers, if you were to give somebody 40 grams of concentrate, there's a certain amount of people, I believe could consume and use that.
I do
Medically.
too, honestly.
But the issue you have, I think, in the lion's share of people is diversion. You're gonna start, there's a market, especially in the event, you know, these products are made in a very safe way and consistent way. And I think they've really come a long way in their, you know, not just concentration, but with very good products actually in North Dakota. I hear it from people who've been in other states all the time.
Clean.
Very clean. And that on the black market, right around or different, where's it gonna go? You start getting up in those large numbers, you're almost encouraging it. That's just thinking of it from that side of it, trying to keep it out of schools and everything like we don't want. So for sure.
So do we have a good way of tracking diversion, knowing that that's one of our like concerns of having that tipping point? Is there, or is it, I would imagine it's very difficult to track directly.
Correct, and there's a couple of things I would say about that. You know, from a law enforcement standpoint, you know, if it's not in the packages or showing, how do you know where did that marijuana come from? In regard to that, and then I think the other part, you know, if there is diversion, you know, I think most people, from what we have been hearing from law enforcement or some of the instances we've ran into, that diversion will occur and those people won't keep it in the packages. And then there's really no way to determine that. The only way we currently have is through our law enforcement incident report. It's available on our website. There's an administrative rule. Law enforcement is to report to us, you know, issues like diversion or other concerns and issues they run across with individuals who may have a medical marijuana card. Overall, we have heard of some diversion in regards to the program that's been reported by law enforcement. But I would say the more and more talk to law enforcement, the more and more starting to hear of it could be, but we've got these other problems that really need our time and effort and resources compared to, you know, where did that marijuana come from? How do we track it down? Until we get into that large amount. So.
I was curious, so that if we were to up the amount, would we have an adequate way to be like, oh, we hit the tipping point or not? And it doesn't sound like there's a really good black and white way to do it. It's kind of a,
I'm certainly not aware of one. If anyone else on the board has an idea in regards to that or is aware of another way or heard something else.
I assumed that that was the answer. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't guessing. Does not surprise me. How's that?
And this is something I know I've been on this now for quite a while, something if the board members would prefer to have on the agenda to circle back around after you've had time to think on this. If you would like the information that's showing here, we could certainly email that out to the members as well. It'd be on your minutes anyways to review as part. So you have this and can kind of review and take some time to think on that too, if that's what the board would like to do.
So the process would be that the advisory board will make a recommendation to legislators and then they take it from there.
The board could make a recommendation to legislative management,
Okay.
or just advise the department and request the department to move forward at next session. To request from the legislature an increase as well, or there could be a certain legislator on the advisory board, no names mentioned, that could introduce a bill on behalf of the advisory committee as well.
And then you'd be doing it with the support of the advisory committee instead of just Senator Roars thinks this is a good idea. So.
Hey, Jason, this is just kind of a question for discussion because I didn't see anything, but it was briefly discussed at the conference that I went to. I know that this is like a general maximum purchase amount, but is there any type of way, and it would be more difficult for law enforcement, like if you pull somebody over, we would have to put something on the cards, is there a way, like doctors can prescribe as little or as much dosage of medication as they want? Is there a way to make it a gradient where if you didn't need 8,000 milligrams or what have you in a month, instead a doctor could say, hey, this person really needs more, that they get a higher purchasing authority than other individuals? Is that something that's been discussed or considered previously?
The only discussion I can remember is probably from 2 sessions ago when the enhanced amount went in for cancer patients on flour. And that was a bill that was introduced. We weren't in on any of the discussion or had any really a lot of input in relation to that. So it could be something that, you know, could be looked at where similar to that, whether it's a certain condition or all conditions, that a healthcare provider could have as part of the written certification to give an enhanced amount in these 2 categories and then having them click the box. I think that's what you're asking, right,
Yep.
Allison?
Yep.
So
Yeah. And
I think that's how we would, off the top of my head, I'm saying that's maybe how to envision something like
And I
that.
think just from a logistical perspective, the medical community has tried to stay as much out of this as possible.
Yep.
Because they are not, you can't prescribe something that is federally illegal. And B, they don't have a lot of knowledge about what is a lot, what's not a lot. They're just, I mean, you don't learn that in medical school and there's not really a place to learn it. And so, but there is, you know, sometimes kind of my gut is always like, I wish that there was a way to be, like when you do pediatric dosing, you do it, you know, milligrams per kilogram, because obviously, you know,
Right.
a 110-pound person versus a 300-pound person is gonna have different needs
Mhm.
based, you know, on how your body metabolizes and all of those different things. But I don't think that the system is ready for that yet.
I was gonna say, keeping it as simple
Yeah.
as possible
Yeah.
logistically.
It's a good question,
makes-
but I think we're not quite ready for prime time on that level of, I speak for the medical community.
Word of mouth, if they knew I made that suggestion, they'd probably kill me.
And then a nurse said the medical community does or doesn't like something they don't.
So if the board would like, we can certainly have this as an agenda item for
Standing
next.
item.
Okay. The other thing to think about on that too is right now there is no possession limit on the medical marijuana products. It's only a possession limit on flower. So the other thing to consider at that point in time is that something that maybe should be considered if you're increasing that amount then too, and just another item or topic for discussion. My understanding is a possession limit specifically wasn't included on that due to the amount you could purchase, and plus, you know, the fact that if somebody was able to, it's gonna take a while to stockpile, so to speak, a large amount of that after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. But
And if you're the cop going, it looks about half full, so I'm gonna say that, I mean, it
Yeah.
becomes very difficult to also calculate. what they
And,
have on
you know,
hand.
if they're gonna
It's
be,
not full.
Exactly.
how to
If
put
it's not-
something
if
on
it's
a
unopened,
scale.
Or if it's open, yep.
So they're not gonna know that tear weight of the container that has that shatter and wax, and I don't know, is that half gone, fully gone, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So we will circle back around to that agenda item. I think that was it, Dr. Weedy, for that agenda item.
Okay. Any further questions of Jason? Okay. So let's move to the administrative rules that are proposed.
You'll recall, we just finished up going through an administrative rule process, and here we're back to the board with another rule change set. Really back based on some information from our legal counsel, no names mentioned, in relation to fees and how the fee language currently is in state law and the reason why we have more changes to the rules. We have some other changes outside of fees as well that we have been considering for a while as we continue to watch the program grow. This morning, when I looked at the report, we're now over 7,900 registered patients, which is certainly ahead of kind of where things were projected at this point in time. These changes that we're going to go through not only cover the fees, but also would provide the department some flexibility and possibly expanding the program if it's deemed necessary. So the first proposed change you're going to see in the rules that were sent to you is down on the bottom of page 4. The last legislative session, we did have changes made to law in relation to how the language is worded for fees. State law used to identify the specific amount that was to be collected. So let's say the department is to collect a non-refundable $50 application fee from a qualifying patient. Legislature modified that language to state that a fee is to be an amount not to exceed a specified dollar amount, thus setting the maximum amount that it can be charged. We were informed by legal counsel that since state law identifies the maximum amount, we need to establish administrative rules to identify what that amount will actually be. Thus, here's the first start of 4 new sections to the administrative rules to identify actual fee amounts to be collected. The fee on this page is in relation to the qualifying patients and agents of manufacturing facilities and dispensaries. Proposed fee for agents is at that maximum of $200. However, the proposed rule does identify a reduction of the qualifying patient fee from the current $50 to $25. Due to our increasing qualifying patient population, the opportunity does exist to have a reduction in that fee amount. I do want to point out and make sure everyone is very clear that the soonest the proposed rules would be effective is October 1, 2022. So if the rules do go forward, that reduction in the patient application fee amount cannot be effective until October 1. On the top of the next page, a new section relates to replacement fees for cards. The maximum amount here is $25. So the rule has $25 for when a card is lost. And then other changes to cards that are required for a replacement card, we'd have a $5 fee. On page 6, when there's an open application period for a manufacturing facility or dispensaries, the rules do require a panel to be established to review the complete applications that are received. Based on our previous panels for reviewing applications, we do identify panels can function and fulfill those responsibilities with fewer members than what the current rules have. So you can see that the minimum amounts change from 5 to 3 and the maximum goes from 12 to 5.
Can I go back to fees for a second?
Yep.
And maybe the unnamed lawyer can help me with this. So Century Code states what? Just that a fee will be assessed and then rule determines the amount?
So
Or,
what
I
the
got a little
Century
lost
Code
there.
says is, we can establish a fee up to X amount of dollars. And basically the department gets to pick an amount from 0 to X. And our position, the Attorney General's office's position has always been, if you are adopting a fee, and you are picking a dollar amount, that dollar amount has to be in administrative code because it has to be accessible to the public. You shouldn't be able to just willy-nilly change it whenever you want, which is why you have the statutory authority to do up to $50 or $500 or whatever, but then the actual dollar amount that you select needs to go in the administrative rules. And this is because it's previously legislatively authorized, we can put this in administrative rules. They put a bar on putting new rules in administrative code last session, but because it's already in century code, this would not fall under that. So instead of establishing the fee by policy, we're just giving the public due notice in the administrative code.
So if, for example, okay, so I see where code says not to exceed $50. And then the administrative rules that we're looking at right now say $25. But let's say we have the scenario where the program has become self-sustaining in a, faster manner, and we want to, like, there's a pandemic and you want to kind of give people a fee holiday or whatever it is, right? What would be the recourse to be able to, would you have to go back and do your administrative rules all over again to ever give a discount?
Well, I mean,
Let me,
so we do have like a hardship, like we have waiver authority, correct? No?
Other states do, we do not.
Okay. So that would be something if you wanted to just be able to individually provide like a hardship waiver or something like that. You would be able to put it in there. Those get somewhat dicey because if you give it to one person, you gotta uniformly apply it. But in the case of a pandemic, usually like we had emergency authority to waive certain administrative rules. And so a lot of times that will come in to play with this, but generally, yes, if we decided, hey, program's self-sustaining, we're gonna bump this down to $5. It would be an administrative rule change. But on the flip side, I get everybody thinks that's stupid, like, oh, hey, we're charging less, why do we have to go through this big process? But say we get embroiled in a massive lawsuit and we've gotta up the fees to help pay for that stuff, the public should have the ability to have input on it. And so this, while it seems like just another bureaucratic roadblock, it does serve a purpose in getting the public involved in commenting on what the fees are.
okay. Just want to make sure you couldn't have like 420 day and like all of a sudden Saturday is a good day.
That's how they do it in Colorado, but not here, not here.
Okay, sorry. I
Like-
digress.
No, you are good. I think on to page 7. Here is a new section proposed when I talked about flexibility for the program if it were to expand. State law does identify that additional categories can be established in rules for manufacturing facilities and dispensaries. What we've seen in some other states is information about other types or specific categories of manufacturing facilities. For example, if it's determined we need more manufacturing facilities, but that need to increase usable marijuana, which is what the law talks about, may only be in relation to flower to market. This rule change allows that ability for the department to have an open application period for a specific type or category of manufacturing facility. So what this does is establishes 2 new categories of manufacturing facilities. A production-only manufacturing facility, which is going to be a grow-only facility. They grow it, harvest it, take it to market. They would not be allowed to do any extractions. Second category, we determined is a medical marijuana product processor. So that medical marijuana product, if you remember back to our previous discussion, the concentrates, the tinctures, the patches, those types of things. This facility would grow, harvest, but they would do extraction only. The flower they grew would not go to market. So what you have here is 2 category types that may be needed, may not be needed, but these are ones that we did see in looking at other states. On page 8, Here's two new proposed sections for fees. The first relates to the fees for manufacturing facility and dispensary application fees. That is the maximum amount in law. The next one on the Compassion Center certification fees, again, that would be for the manufacturing facilities and dispensaries. So you can see the manufacturing facility, the 110,000 is the maximum amount. And now we're looking at a different fee structure for dispensaries. Those dispensaries that are in a city with a population of 10,000 or more, and those that are in a city or a location with, a city with a population of 10,000 or less. You can see the population of 10,000 or less, it would reduce it down to $30,000. We do have one current dispensary that would fall into that new category. And so we would collect $60,000 less if this were implemented next biennium.
Do they get a refund? Likely not.
I don't believe so, but that's a good question for legal that we'll have to explore. I don't,
Refund fees.
and I mean, they paid it for the 2-year, their certificate, this goes into effect October 1,
okay.
so, yep.
I forgot that it was an ongoing.
I
not
have to
just
stop
an
and think, I
upfront.
don't believe it would be able to, it would just be going forward October 1, any fee being paid, then would be that amount.
I forgot that it's every 2 years in my head. It was the, like, I have to pay this just to say it started and then.
Yep.
Then it'd be renewal too from the original date that they were and were required as well.
Yep, which is why that dispensary that would reduce down to 30,000 wouldn't impact the current biennium, it would be the next biennium.
And do we know how many cities are over 10,000 roughly? Ballpark?
I'm gonna say your dispensaries are in 8 cities, 7 of those 8 are over 10,000. Devil's Lake is the one that's under 10. The next the next one over, next largest city under 10,000 is going to be after Jamestown, Wapaton. Might have. So when you look at this, Fargo, Bismarck, Grand Forks, Minot, West Fargo, Williston, Dickinson, Mandan, Jamestown, all over 10,000. Wapaton is about 8,500, Devil's Lake 72, and then Valley City.
Jason, did you say that these fees are biannual fees?
These are collected, yep, every 2 years. And so once, right now, all of our manufacturing facilities and dispensaries pay when they renew. All of them have different renewal dates based on when they got their first registration certificate, because that was good for 2 years.
So I get that this is what essentially funds the program. But are there other businesses in the state that have to pay that kind of a biannual fee to exist?
Right now, I would have to start doing some
And I'd
looking
be
to see
curious.
what it is.
I'd be curious, like, maybe the Secretary of State's office would know, but I don't know. I just am thinking like, does a hospital have to pay a fee to exist?
Closest thing you'd have would be franchise fees, just from my history. That goes to the manufacturer, such as a car dealership.
Hospitals have to have like plans reviewed and stuff like that, but I don't believe it's this
Fee.
substantial. But I mean, on the flip side, I don't know if you call it a fee, but like oil and gas gets a special tax to do business here.
All sins, sin taxes.
But that's based on production rather
Correct.
than
That's sales.
just to exist. I think that's where I'm struggling with it. Like, I get it being a percent of your production, whether it's from the manufacturing side or from the sales side. But I suppose because we can't really do a sales tax on something that you can't even pay. Well, I mean, pay taxes.
We pay
sales tax.
So-
There's just not that additional tax
Yeah.
on the purchase of product.
We pay federal
Being
and state
excise,
taxes,
above and beyond.
which is,
In cash.
sucks because we can't use the bank, yeah, it's ridiculous.
It just, that. This has always bothered me.
Seems like a
And
lot to
here's
you.
what-
Well, yeah, but it just even the structure of it has always bothered me, but I've never known a better way to do it. so I can't.
Businesses do pay fees to exist. Like, restaurants or food and lodging or something, they have fees. whether
License
it's called
fees.
licensed or these are called certification
Okay.
fees.
Okay.
So
I
they,
suppose that
they
would,
pay.
that would be the
Now,
most
what
equivalent.
amount
that
it
you're
is,
paying
I
to the
do
state.
not know, but almost all these.
And you can
businesses
see that
pay.
we started with reduction in fees
Mhm.
with, and started with the patient one to start.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to monitor and see if there is a way to reduce fees, then what the next group of fee reduction would be. We started with the patients.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So, okay, it's always kind of bothered me in the back of my head, but never like could come up with a better way to do it. But I was trying to figure out, is this equivalent to something else? And I suppose licensing fees, this is essentially what that is. So at least there is a model out there that is doing it. It's not only this, it's just with the numbers being that large, because I would imagine a hotel licensing fee is not anywhere in this realm, but maybe it is, I don't know.
I can answer your.
I'd like to
I can
know what-
Answer to those questions about lodging fees and restaurant fees. They are at the state level, and then at local jurisdictions will also set fees under their local ordinances, so there is a range. We have our license fees posted online as well, accessible for review. But like in comparison, a restaurant will pay $110 a year plus 50 cents a seat. So depending on the size, that's pretty close to average. You'll find some local health units charging a little bit higher than that. North Dakota's pretty much on the low end compared to other states.
Yeah.
Other states charge quite a bit more. We also have lodging fees that are ranked by size and number of rooms, so it probably ranges anywhere from 100 to 300. And that's yearly.
So these rules right now are going through the current administrative rule process. We'll have a public hearing in July and then take all comments received 10 days after that, respond to those, file everything with the Office of Attorney General in hopes that we meet the timeline to get on the September Administrative Rules Committee for these to be effective come October 1.
Any other questions or comments related to the administrative rules? So we'll move to division staffing update.
We did want to inform the board that next week we are starting a new person in the division. So our division has 5 full-time equivalents. We did hire someone to fill a part-time temporary office assistant position, mainly to help us handle the increase in work we're experiencing with those number of registered cardholders. So just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that we do need to get some more help. We would like to see Donna actually take a vacation this summer and not come back and have to work 100 hours to make up for 1 week gone. So
That's the worst.
we're happy to be getting somebody new started. So if you happen to see an email or another name on there, yes, we do have somebody new starting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Topics you would like to hear in the future?
Dr. Weeden, just so you know, I didn't send it to you, but everybody did get an individual email from me, so we didn't have a reply all type one just to ask for agenda items. We can certainly do the same thing again, look at the same process where Donna can send out, well, not to speak for Donna, but if Donna would send out an invite or not an invite, a poll to see kind of what dates would work to try to make sure that we get I would think legislative management will have somebody new appointed in the next few months, maybe,
As the chair?
to
Or,
to
oh, on
replace
the-
Representative Westland.
yeah, I would imagine it would be pretty quick once they. But I don't, because I'm assuming that Pollard could just do that. I don't think they have to convene
Okay,
for him to be able to fill it.
so I know looking quarterly meetings, that would put us into that September time range. And we could follow a very similar process as far as some dates to consider. We, in full disclosure, always check Dr. Weeby's schedule because his is, if you saw his calendar, you would think, I thought I was busy. We'll find some dates that are, work for him, get a hold in his calendar and then kind of send that out to the board members and see what works and then ask for agenda items. For sure, we'll circle back on the 4,000 milligrams of THC or medical marijuana product discussion, excuse me.
Thank you, Jason, for the information you provided, and thank you everyone for your attendance, and we stand adjourned.
We could make room for you if you're,
No, that's okay. It's not bad. Kind of peek over your shoulder, make it feel nervous.
I can't wait to be on the, let alone have a free hand and hold it.
I forgot to print out expense report.
It'll be interesting, not my forte.
So,
I will get that taken care of.
okay. So, sorry, I should have printed those out. I don't mean to run, but I'm actually